Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of June 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Just before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. It's chock full of really astounding people. I just love the bones of all of them. And you can get access to all the extended content for no extra cost. And we're setting up classes and all sorts of things over there. So if that is your bag, please do feel free to check that out. Now, Leo, let's get straight on and see what is going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Leo, please? We have the Queen of Wands in your recent past. Let me flip this around so you can, so I can bitch about the positioning of the camera. Super. So, Queen of Wands in your recent past. Current energy, please, for Leo. We have the 3 of Swords. And what's coming towards Leo, please? And we have the Devil. Interesting. Right, we have the Knight of Wands at the bottom of the deck there, Sagittarius energy, followed by the Queen of Pentacles and the Chariot. There's a great deal of a desire for movement here from you, Leo. Whether you're getting it or not seems to be an entirely different consideration. Queen of Pentacles at the bottom there is Capricorn energy, just as the Devil is. It could be that you're having dealings with a Capricorn this month, or it could well be that in the desire for movement and yet the face of what appears to be restriction, you're having to find a way to learn to be kind to yourself whilst the machinations of the universe are playing themselves out in a way that seems, currently at least, to be indecipherable. I'll put it like that. Let's put a bit more of this in here and put some meat on the bones of this reading. So, tell me about the Queen of Wands. Why is that here, please? For Leo. Thank you. We have the 3 of Cups. And we have the 10 of Pentacles. Tell me about the 3 of Swords, please. We have the Queen of Swords. It's Libra energy. And we have the Sun. There you are, Leo. Lovely. Tell me about the Devil. So we have the 5 of Wands, which is a Leo card. It's actually Saturn in Leo, and we'll get on to why that might be an important thing in a minute. And it's come out sideways. Now, I know this is probably going to upset some people, but I do actually honour sideways turning up cards, because for me they feel like that is the direct interpretation of the card, whatever it is. This is in some ways a reversal, or it can be a block, a delay, something like that. It feels like when the card comes out this way, it hasn't actually committed to one way or the other, which means that there's some sort of intervening action or event or behaviour, or some sort of twist that is going to push it one way or the other, and it kind of brings it down to you, Leo, often. Not universally, but often it's about the way that you choose to deal with a situation that decides whether it goes upright or inverted. So tell me about the Devil, please. Fuck's sake. Here we are. We've got the 2 of Wands, and that actually is confirming exactly what I just said there. I'm sorry about the camera, it'll sort itself out in a minute. Which is to say that you are the one who needs to make the decision about how this goes. And we have the Hanged Man at the bottom of the deck. So there is the implication here, somewhat, that there's a change of perspective that's coming in for you, and that change of perspective, perhaps caused by new information that is coming in, is causing you to reassess something. Perhaps reassess the way in which you feel stuck or trapped, certainly with the Devil card being there. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, sorry, this is a proper little clusterfuck of cards here. Let me put them where you can see them. Move these over here. And we start with the Queen of Wands. Now, the Queen of Wands for me is Aries energy. I know some people read it differently, but for me it's Aries. And it's the preceding card to the card that actually indicates you, Leo, because that's the King of Wands. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? It's about the active expression. It's about the doing and going after, right? And whilst there's still an active component to the Queen of Wands, she is, by definition, more passive than the King, right? Because it's about the balance of energies. It doesn't have to do anything to do with sex, actually, at all. It's about the expression of masculine energy or the expression of feminine energy, and we contain both within us. So at this point in your recent past, what has been more prevalent has been the internal subjective experience of fire for you. And that's, the one suit is all about living. It's about life. It's about your vital force. It's about your creativity, and it's about your passion. But the way that I read the dynamic between the King and the Queen is that, the King is the one who goes out and does things, right? We see the King in terms of, but sometimes he can be, a solo entrepreneur or something like that, right? Because he's got the drive and the motivation to start something, to initiate it, but he's got the stamina to see it through also, right? And it tends to be quite, it's quite self-driven. It's not like the King of Pentacles, where you've got, the notion of the CEO, right? Lots of people working for you. This is somebody who's doing it by themselves, for themselves. So to step back to the Queen and the internal subjective experience of whatever it is that you are going to do, for me, she talks about the confidence that is necessary, right? The sense of self-worth that is necessary. Sometimes even the visual aspect, the visualization aspect of what it will be to do that thing. Now, as fire signs, I have noticed that we don't feel like we're doing something unless we're actively doing something, we can occasionally sit around and contemplate our navels, but actually when it comes down to it, we prefer to be actively doing something, moving our body in this. And so this very necessary step before the doing something is having the confidence to know that we're doing the right thing. It's having the self-worth to be going in the right direction with whatever thing that we're doing, right? It's considering all angles. And I've used this quote a couple of times this week, but I'm reminded of that quote from Bruce Lee where he says that, I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's done one kick 10,000 times. And it's like the confidence of the man who has done one kick 10,000 times, right? Who truly mastered something, means that he knows at the point where that kick comes out, it's going to land. He knows that movement so very fucking well that he doesn't need to think about it. It's almost reflective. And when it comes to the act of doing things, so what Leo wants to do is do it so fucking confidently, so well practiced, so slick, that it just comes out. It just lands, and we know that it does. And the confidence that comes with that actually increases the likelihood that it will land, because the self-belief is there. And for whatever reason, you seem to have stuck at this point, Leo. Now, we've got the Three of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles underneath there, clarifying, adding a little bit more information. And the Three of Cups is about emotional support networks. And the Five of Pentacles, hello, that was a bit of a slip. The Ten of Pentacles can speak about business, it can speak about work, but it can also speak about the home and the family and all those kind of things, right? And as I'm recording this, where are we on? The 26th of May, we're still very much in the grip of this fixed grand cross that's been in a state of exactitude, I believe, this week, that sees Mars in Leo in a state of tension with Pluto in Aquarius, which is then also being squared by itself by Jupiter in Taurus. And then we have the North and the South Node in play too. And I think for a lot of Leos, what this has meant is that we're feeling quite pulled in lots of different directions, right? We've got the emotional support there of, our family, for our family, towards our family, and received from our family, but from our collective generally. Okay, we've also got stability and security. We've got, the idea of business and work and things like that. What we do to actually practically ensure, I guess, our resources, right? How do we make everything work when we've got commitments over here and we've got commitments over there? Like, what is the balance? And in some ways, this could be like the contemplation of what the work-life balance actually looks like. And I think because the Ten of Pentacles for me has this kind of heritage and legacy vibe, what we've got is this sense of how you have done things in the past versus how you would like to do them in the future. And the Ten of Pentacles acting like a snapshot in time, saying, well, this is what's going on here. But this fixed cross seems to have everybody reevaluating their core values. Is this what I stand for? Is this really what I want? Is this the way that I want to run the rest of my life? This tension between these planets squaring off on the nodes means I think a lot of people have been spending most of May in a state of contemplation. I mean, what is emotional support and what does it look like? Are you there for your family? Is your family there for you? Are your friends there for you? Are the people that you need around you, your community, your collective, are they there for you? And correspondingly, are you showing up in the best way that you possibly can? Because I think for a lot of us, there have been a ton of insights coming in, and particularly over this last 2-week period, where we find ourselves reflecting on how we have been versus who we are now versus, again, what we would like things to be like in the future. Now, whether that's from a practical consideration, when we're talking about, literally where you're living, literally what you're doing for a job, or something at this point a little bit more ephemeral than that. The feeling that goes with the stability and the security of something that you are trying to build at this point. We're still very much at the internal subjective stage of this, right? It's not actually seeing its execution outside of us, but that isn't a bad thing. I've been talking about the fixed cross there for a second, but let's not also forget that we have had a solar eclipse on the 20th of April. We've had that lunar eclipse on the 5th of May, and Mercury was in retrograde. And I don't know about you, but that was a little bit spicy, that Mercury retrograde. Not in the way that I expected. There's lots of ways that these tend to be a bit spicy, travel disruptions and shit going wrong with your car, or shit going wrong with your, technology and all that sort of stuff. But it was so reflective. And it really did seem to be focusing on not only our foundation, but what it is that we're trying to build moving forwards, the quality of what we're trying to build. And I'll get to that in a second, but I just want to pull another card or two for this Three of Cups. Oh, that's interesting. Three of Cups is in the reverse, and we have the Temperance card. And we've got the Lovers at the bottom of the deck. Sorry, it's not even that bright outside. It's really cloudy. It's just bleaching everything out. When the Lovers card comes out, we are talking about a choice. That was the original, I believe it was the original title of the tarot card, actually. And it depicted two men, a man and two women. And the idea was that he was being called to choose between them, right? This is a big, life-changing decision that he was making. I don't know if that's a bit anachronistic nowadays, right? But when you really dig into it, what it comes down to is this sense of conscious free will, conscious co-creation, right? The way that we choose to manifest for ourselves. But the other important thing is that the Lovers is the opposite to the devil. They are considered to be almost one and the same card. They tend to be structured the same. It's not the case in the wild unknown. But we have this kind of, rather imposing mythical figure at the top. So in this case, we've got the devil here. In the Lovers card, in a standard depiction of it, we would have an angel. And then we have two naked figures who are, in the devil card, chained by the neck. And in the Lovers card, they're just standing there, right? They're free, totally open, And the point is that whatever situation that you are in, it depends very much on your mindset as to whether, you're feeding the devil or whether you are really feeding into this sense of your own free will and conscious co-creation. And so, leaning even more into that, we've got this idea of what is it that you are actually afraid of. And I think that a lot of the reflection that's gone on over the course of May has been very much concerned with how far in your life have you actually been exercising your free will? How much of it has been governed by what you think you should have been doing, or, what you were driven to do because you were afraid of the consequences of not? How much of it has been driven by a fear that you have not articulated even to yourself, perhaps? Because I think May's been a really deep month, actually, for you, Leo. And the question of what it is to be supportive or to be supported, right? The question of what security and stability looks like for you, whether it's from a material perspective, your house, your income, your the stuff that you have, or from something, like I said, a little bit more abstract. Because all of this might sound a little bit like indulgent navel-gazing, but I think it's actually led to some really critical changes in the way that you think. I mean, we see that the Temperance card is here, right? So we've got double Sag on the table now too. But, while we talk about the higher meanings of temperance as being perhaps divine guidance, divine orchestration, right? We've got this sense of, this higher state of healing that is available to us, when we really crack through something. Temperance is often just exactly that. It is tempering our responses to things, right? It is seeing where perhaps in the past we have really lost our shit, flipped our fucking biscuits about something, right? And gone off at the deep end. And regardless of whether we were right to do so or not, we realise that there's something about the way that we were delivering that truth that really was flagging up the fact that we were scared. And maybe this might have manifested itself in you in some sort of control issues, right? Maybe it might have been a fairly kind of brittle temper. You can kind of keep things nice for a while, but if anything starts to go off a little bit, then, it's some sort of crisis, right? And the feelings that you have been, emotional. I mean, well, you just look at these two cards here. They're looking at each other like that, right? There's a mirrored image going on here. And I think that Leo has been looking in the mirror, and I think Leo has actually been completely reevaluating what is important in light of what you see. And it's so subtle and it's so nuanced, and you probably would find it difficult to express it to the depth that you feel it to other people. But I think the very nature of what the Ten of Pentacles represents to you is changed, is morphed. And this is why there's no action going on here, Leo. This is why it's all still very much in the realm of the up here and in here and not out here. Because in some ways it needed a revision. It's not a full going back to the drawing board, but it has been there's some new fucking information that's come to light here, and now in light of all of that information, not only are we feeling healing, not only are we feeling a sense of temperance and balance and moderation, but something really significant has changed about the way that we do things. You know, there's the knee-jerk reactions. You're stepping them down. There's something much more thoughtful about your energy, and the desire to move from a place of what is right, let's bring in the Queen of Swords here, is overwhelming everything else now. Because your idea of what is right has shifted, has changed, has morphed, has evolved into something else. And I think it truly has begun a process of aligning you with your North Node much more neatly than you were before. Now, this Three of Swords makes all sorts of sense now. It's not that it didn't make sense before, but now that we've developed the context around it, we can see very clearly why in the present moment we have the Three of Swords. It doesn't feel like it's that you've been thrown into crisis mode. It doesn't feel like there's 1001 things that have just gone shit over the last few weeks since we spoke last. It's more like there's an appreciation of what has been very subtly rumbling underneath. You know, the Three of Swords is a card that I think for most people, they don't need to have it explained to them, even if they don't read tarot. You show them the Three of Swords in all of its different depictions, and people go, that doesn't look like a very nice card. Because everybody knows what it feels like. Right? That feeling where the sword goes through the heart and you're like, holy fuck. And the thing that always confused me about this card is why it would be such an emotional card and yet depicted within the sword suit. Right? The swords being air and the realm of the rational, the logical, the technological, the future, all that sort of stuff, right? And the conclusion that I came to was it was that point where the information that was contained within the swords hit the heart. Right? And it changes your perspective. It changes the way that you see the world. Yes, it causes a wound, but that wound tends to reveal something else if we are available, if we make ourselves available to notice it. Rather than just reacting to the situation that is in front of us, we're kind of going like, oh. We talk about shadow work a lot. And I think there are two different types of shadow work. The first is the involuntary type of shadow work, right? Where we, for whatever reason, we trip off a cliff and we go down this fucking abyss, and it's catalyzed by, I don't know, a breakup. That tends to be a big one, or a job loss, or some sort of kind of big tower moment in our lives, where something is ripped away, and we're like, oh shit, what do I do now? And that tends to be the thing that starts this process off. And I'm, absolutely, that's been a big thing for me. But there's also the voluntary type as well, where you go, I feel okay. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at myself, because I actually want to improve myself, and I don't want to be having to always do it in the face of crisis. So, let's have a look at what's going on with me. And we start looking for it. And there are various different methods that you can use in order to do that. But what you're trying to do in that moment is show yourself where the flaws in your thinking are, where the flaws in your emotional responses are, and not because we're looking to beat ourselves or feel shit about ourselves or anything like that, but because truly you can't fix something unless you know that it's there. And the whole point of the shadow is it's pushed to where you can't fucking see it. The ego says, we can't be dealing with that. That's too fucking hard. And, if that was to come out, then I would be in some way compromised. Right? It's where the kind of brittle ego thing comes in, right? And we all know people who have a brittle ego. They cannot take criticism, right? And criticism is hard. It's a difficult thing to deal with, but nevertheless. when we get to that state where we're kind of like, no, I want to push this self-knowledge just a little bit more, then we go looking for it. Now, I don't think that you've necessarily actively gone out looking for it, but I do feel like, Leo, this period of introspection, this period of reflection that May held for you is now seeing you arrive at a place where you view your pain differently. Right? In so much as perhaps you are seeing the expressions of your pain, the way that you are when you feel like you're backed into a corner, the way that you are when you feel like you're not getting what you need from something. You know, maybe it's the way that you are when it feels like things are out of your control, but there's something again that feels like it's a step back from the need to control things. And so what we've got here is the ability to objectively interrogate this Three of Swords. Now, I have to say, it's been really astonishing to me just how many cards that represent Saturn have been coming out for people in the readings in June. And this is important. So we've got the Three of Swords here. That's Saturn in Libra. We've got the Five of Wands here, which is Saturn in Leo. Got the Devil. That's Saturn all day long, right? Is that Saturn? It is Saturn, yeah. Anyway, and I think that there's an important reason why that is happening. And when we think about Saturn, we think about rules and restrictions. We think about, not being permitted to move forwards. It's that sense of kind of being trapped and fighting against big cosmological forces that, like an adult on a 2-year-old's head, they're kind of holding you there. 2-year-old's kind of wheeling and being like, I want to go and do things. And it's like, actually, child, you need to stop there for just a second. Sit down, eat your food, or, finish the job that you were doing, or tidy up your crayons, all that kind of, like, nah. You're not moving. It's that hard taskmaster. It's the relentless fucking drive of a planet that seems set on stopping you doing what you think you want to do up until that point, right? But what is often missing from the discourse when we think about Saturn or when we talk about Saturn is the fact that there is always a purpose to this, right? The struggle fucking means something. And I think we're getting to a point now where we can see that it means something. And I think for everyone, June is a month, not just Leo, but everyone, June is a month where we start to see the other side of Saturn. We start to see the point. We start to understand truly why these restrictions have occurred, right? Why we've been held still, right? Why everything is very much reflective, the internal subjective experience of, the thought of what we're going to do in the future, but also of, who we are at all. And so Saturn in Libra, as the Three of Swords is, and then we've got the Queen of Swords, which is Libra too. We're looking for the balance. In our situations, possibly, but more importantly within ourselves. Because I think that we've begun to see where we have been imbalanced. And it's subtle work, it's very fine work, Leo. It's not something that we can just throw ourselves at. Now with Mars being in Leo, what we want is to do, right? We want to do. We want to push things forwards. But at the same time, there's a reason why we've been held back. And I think that June, June is the month where we start to see the point. We start to really work out why. And we've been given all this incredible space here to work these things out about ourselves. I'll get on to June in a second. We'll look at this here. The Queen of Swords is all about the processing of information. In this weird little story that I've got in my head about the dynamic between the court hierarchy of the Suit of Swords, the Page of Swords discovers the information, gathers the information, if you will, right? and he passes it to the knight, who transmits the information. Now, the transmission of information can be as much, the things that you say and people say to you, the things that you hear or don't hear, but they can also be the things that you think, the way that you think, the way that you communicate at all. And the knight brings it to the queen. And the queen is the one who makes sense of everything, right? She's looking for the truth. She's looking for the coherent thread that runs through it. It's about analysis. And what we've got here is an analysis of not only you as Leo, there you are, authentic stamp of a big cat foot on it, I am here, but something a little deeper than that. An investigation, an analysis of your consciousness and the way that it works. Your inner child and what your inner child is trying to say to you. But also about joy. About the present. Because there's something kind of stoic that's breeding, kind of blooming here within you, actually, Leo. And so despite the pushes of Mars in Leo, right? That incredible drive that planet in that sign, in our sign, provides, right? Which wants to eliminate all obstacles and charge forwards and just be very Martian about everything, right? Cutting shit up and being at war and stuff. It's being tempered by this more circumspect kind of feeling, this more circumspect kind of approach, actually. And where I started to go before, but then I kind of hung back because I felt like it was much more appropriate that it came out here, was the sense of integrity. And this is a word that's been coming up a lot in the readings this month too, right? The need to be doing things right. The Queen of Swords is a lower echo of the Justice card. In fact, I think the Justice card is actually kind of like an amalgamation of the energy of the King of Swords and the Queen of Swords together. But again, we've got the kind of internal, subjective, objective experience of the Suit of Swords here. Now, the King of Swords eventually will end up being the final arbiter of the matter in hand. He's the one who makes the decision. But he's doing it on the basis of the information that has been passed to him by the Queen. The stuff that she has worked out, the stuff that she has processed, right? Where she has tested the veracity of the information that's come in and gone, well, this is all bullshit. I've been through that. It's completely irrelevant. It's fluff. It's nonsense. These are the facts of the matter. These are the facts of the matter about your consciousness, about you and the way that you show up. These are the facts about what the inner child wants right now. But these are also the facts about the way that I experience joy and happiness and vulnerability in my life. This is how I express my authenticity. Now, what happens from here, whatever it is that the King of Swords makes a decision about, it will all be off the back of what you have worked out during this time. And it's very fine work. But more than anything else, Leo, I do feel you being moved by a need to act correctly, right? To come correct in everything that you do, regardless of the effect that it has on the wider potential of the experiences that you've been trying to set up for yourself. It's almost like some things are more important. It feels like your core values have had a bit of a wriggle around and you're like, actually, do you know what? This is the priority right here. And the corollary of that is what's happened is the attachment to outcome has been removed. Right? Before, we've been guilty of going, this is the thing that I want and this is the exact way that it has to happen. And anything else is going to feel like failure. But it feels like actually it was very narrow and it was a very flat kind of way of approaching life. It was a very flat way of approaching manifestation. Now you kind of moved sideways from that. And it's like, it isn't about the house, it isn't about the job, it isn't about the business, it isn't about any of these things, right? It's actually about some bigger principle that is at play here. And I want to be standing in my power and standing in my truth and not allowing pain to be putting a filter over that, right? Stopping me from engaging with the matter at hand properly. I want to see it for what it actually is, regardless of whether that reveals me to have behaved, less than optimally in the past, or whether maybe it's even the pain of receiving criticism or whatever would have taken you down a very different path in the past. It's like, well, no, that fucking stings, so I don't want to be anywhere near that, thank you very much. It's morphing into something different. Tell me about Queen of Swords and the Sun. We've got the King of Cups at the bottom of the deck, which is Scorpio. And we have Death, which is also Scorpio. We've got transformation. And the funny thing is, Leo, I feel like for most of you, this transformation that you are undergoing, and you are actually acutely aware of the fact that you're undergoing at the moment, doesn't feel like how you thought it would feel. It feels very peaceful. It feels very authentic. It feels like there isn't any noise around it. There isn't any static around it. It simply is what it is. And it will be what it will be. Both in terms of what the rest of your life holds, but also the nature of the transformation that you're going through. It's like, I said, expectations almost seem to have been cast by the wayside. And you feel to me like you are being entirely present. An excellent lesson from the Knight of Wands, if ever there was one. And we have the Queen of Pentacles underneath. Like I said again, it's Capricorn energy. But specifically, this card talks to me about self-care. It talks to me about the way that we nurture ourselves. And then by extension, how we invest and nurture others too. Yeah, he's got these three queens, right? All about the internal experience. No kings on the table. But what we have is the precursor to the arrival of the kings. The precursor to the arrival of that which is the active expression of what we're trying to create. The King of Wands, the King of Swords, the King of Pentacles. It's important that we get these things right first. And it's not, well, it might be, actually. I was going to say, it's not because, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions very fast. You're going to have to get things in order very, very fast at some point beyond here, although it absolutely could speak to that. It's more like you need to make sure that the foundations are correct. We're not skipping from the page to the king. We're not skipping from the knight to the king. We're doing the work first. And the only king on the table is the King of Cups, which says emotionally, you need to be stable. Emotionally, you need to be correct. Emotionally, you need to be showing up in the best way that you possibly can. We've got the Five of Pentacles underneath that. And I feel like, this is poverty right here, right? It's a lack of something, or it's a fear of a lack of something. And actually what I feel here is that you have lost that fear. You don't feel to me to be standing in a state of fear anywhere. The High Priestess is that expression of internal wisdom again, right? Sometimes it's about not saying everything that you think, Leo, and I think probably you've been keeping some things to yourself. If there are some situations around you that are agitating you, but it's about the discernment, right? The Queen of Swords is about discernment. The High Priestess is about discernment. The Hangman, has been about illumination, right? Seeing the world from a different perspective, looking at things from lots of different sides, in order that you can take the wisest course of action moving forwards. And for some of you, that involves standing still. As much as this is not what you want to do, it's standing still. Because the promise of the Chariot is victory, is success. It's being assured of winning, but only if these two beasts are truly controlled. You know, and I mean, there are no certainties in anything. I mean, they could hit, I don't know, like a small dog could run out in front of them, right? Whole fucking chariot flips. But it's about making sure that which can be controlled, which is only really you, Leo, is to its fullest extent, as controlled as it can be. Because if you're going off on a race and you're already struggling to control these horses, by the time, you know, you get up to speed, your ability to be able to react to new things that come in is going to be incredibly compromised. You know, in kickboxing, I taught people stuff. Like, the biggest mistake people make is going in and like swinging like you wouldn't fucking believe, right? Trying to take people's heads off. You can always tell a newbie because that's how they fight. And we always would say the same thing: technique, speed, power. If you don't master the technique first, it doesn't matter how fast you throw it, it doesn't matter how hard you throw it, you'll never throw it as fast as you could, and you will never throw it as hard as you could. And more than that, you're probably telegraphing every fucking move that you make, and you never land a fucking punch in the first place, right? Or a kick or anything. So you work on the technique and you drill it over and over again. You become the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. The technique is the control. After that, you can move faster, and after that, you can bring the true extent of your Leo power to bear. But in this instance, you are being held still, so that you've got all of the information, you've got the opportunity to practice the technique, right? To practice the control of yourself, to balance out your very self, invest in yourself. And probably a huge part of that is the tension between wanting to move and having to stand still. It's a huge part of self-control there. Right? I remember in the Mars retrograde a few years ago, it was probably 2020, I think. I think that's when it was. Around about September-ish time. There was an Aries commented on the channel and said, Mars retrograde for an Aries is like having a Formula 1 car, but putting up on bricks. The engine's there, it's revving, it's ready to go, and there's literally no way of moving forwards. And it really stuck with me because I thought it was really, you know, spot on. And in some ways, that's a similar sort of energy to that which I feel here for you, Leo, right? There's this fucking sports and performance car that is ready to get off around the track, except that it's not ready because it doesn't have wheels on it. So it might not be Mars that is holding you back, actually quite the reverse, right? It's going go, 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 go. But the wisdom of the situation is, I am not yet ready. And so, as much as I would love to get out there on the track and do things, if I try and go now, something's going to go wrong. And maybe it is because, in some way, you've got a boss battle coming up, Leo. I think that's probably the best way to describe what I'm feeling. It's a boss battle. We've got the devil, which represents all the things that you are afraid of. It represents the ways in which you allow yourself to be trapped in a situation. Right? Now, it could be that this is something new that is coming up. It could be that this is something that needs to be dealt with. I think it is something that needs to be dealt with. I'd sit and listen to my tuning fork inside, you know. Sometimes I say a thing and there's just no response from the tuning fork, and I'm like, no, that shit, just ignore that. And then other times it's like it's going away and I'm like banging away inside, and I'm like, well, which bit of that was right? There are things that need to be ironed out. And they are things that the archetype is of the devil is the embodiment of everything that we fear, but it is also self-imposed limitations, self-imposed restrictions. We're talking about mindset, talking about, you know, emotional maturity, you know, the range of what it is that you allow yourself to feel, and then allow yourself to let go. Right? King of Cups all day long. You know, like I was saying before, like you've got all these queens here. You have the Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Swords, Queen of Wands. No action yet, but lots of consideration, like lots of things that the queens do the best. The only way in which you are actually moving along this month, Leo, is emotionally. Because for whatever June has in store for you, the only thing that is required from you is that you show up in the highest expression of who you are emotionally. And my Mercury's in Leo as well, right? So I've got a kind of theatrical bent, but I do try and keep it strapped down, mostly. But I don't think boss battle is actually too far removed from what is going on here. What we do not want in June are knee-jerk reactions. What we do not need in June is snappy decisions made, or things that are done out of frustration or desperation, right? Or just like, got to do a thing, so I'm just going to do anything and then deal with the consequences later. It's like everything has to be thought out. Everything has to be felt your way through. And to that end, you know, everything that you experienced in May and the insights that you got into yourself, all that, it's timed just beautifully for, I think, a big increase in pressure on you this month. And we've got the Five of Wands. Now, do you remember I said, like, put a pin in the Five of Wands because it's going to be important later? I think every reading that I have done for YouTube, this card's come up, or the Six of Wands. And I think for every personal reading that I've done recently, it's come up too. And the reason why this is important is because the Five of Wands, Saturn and Leo, and then we've got following it the Six of Wands, which is Jupiter in Leo, right? And the Six of Wands is the one that we actually like, right? That's the one that we actually want. But increasingly what I'm finding it very difficult to do is separate these two cards. It's more than the fact that they just sit next to each other. Like, they are entirely entangled, and one does depend on the other. In so much as, you know, you cannot have the Six of Wands. You cannot have a victory unless you have struggled against something, unless you have competed against something. It's just not possible. I mean, you could declare it to be the case, but it wouldn't actually be the case. You know, the point of struggle, the point of strife, the point of the things that we struggle with internally, and maybe externally too, is to get to a point where we can conquer those things. And sometimes we get lost in the struggle. Sometimes we get lost in the, you know, and I think it happens a lot when we're younger. Just like, why the fuck is everything so fucking hard all fucking time, you know? Like, why can't everything just be nice? Why can't everything just be fixed? What the fuck? You know? What we want to do is leap over the Five of Wands and get straight to the Six. But the real wisdom comes in working our way through the Five of Wands. And if you lose within your mind the possibility of the Six of Wands, then you get lost in the struggle. Then it becomes overwhelming. Then it becomes like just completely fucking oppressive. So we must always keep that Six of Wands in mind. But I think that what Saturn teaches us is that what we consider to be a victory long term would prove to be anything but. And so we have to submit to the lessons of Saturn and accept that we don't know everything, and we probably don't know what's best for us or right for us or any of those sort of things. I've spoken before, almost every shitty thing that can happen to a human being has happened to me at some point. And if you told me at the age of 16 that this is the way that your life's going to go, I'd be like, tapping out. No thank you, I don't want that. Right, what's the fucking point? It sounds like a miserable fucking existence. And yet I sit here before you at 42 years old and can say, honestly, hand on heart, each one of those things was a gift. Would I want to experience them again? Absolutely fucking not. No. Would I wish it on my worst enemy? No. None of those. But what I have gained from it is something that I could not have learned any other way. And now, sitting where I am, and absolutely, not kind of like the eye of the storm at the moment, right? There's a lot of things going on. A lot of things that I would have found insanely stressful even just 4 years ago, that I'm facing in a state of peace. And I don't think that that's just specific to me. I think this is part of the Leo experience at the moment. I talked a few months ago to you about the necessity of finding your faith. Like understanding what that actually feels like to you. Because I think that, for a lot of Leos, it's actually a little bit of an alien concept. Because once you've got faith, you've got self-belief as well. And the self-belief says, whatever comes along, I'll be fine. I can deal with it. It's only when we start going, oh no, that sounds fucking awful, right? Well, I'm going to do anything that I can, subconsciously, to sidestep having to deal with this situation. I feel like June is a month that sees culmination of lots of those previous experiences where you have tried to sidestep, right? Where you haven't understood the nature of the struggle from the macro perspective, right? That maybe you got stuck in the minutiae of it all, and you're just kind of like, this is horrible, just get away from it as quickly as possible. It feels like it's kind of resurfacing, like a boss battle. So that where it is in the past that you have sidestepped stuff, where you have avoided stuff, where you've taken the quiet, easy road because it brought less stress on you, it's kind of coming around again. And it's saying this time, it's actually important for you to hit this head on. I was watching I don't watch many YouTube videos on tarot and astrology, but there's a dude that I've been watching fairly regularly called Cam White. I really, really like him. He's a fellow Leo, actually, so you should go and show him some love. I remember virtually nothing of what he said because, my brain's like a sieve. But the one thing that really stuck in my head about what he said about Mars being in Leo is that for everyone it's about doing everything with your full chest. It's about not backing down from what you think is right. Now, do you remember what I was saying before about how in the past you might have been right, but the way that you went about something, now you look back on it and you go, that isn't me now. I wouldn't do things like that this time. It feels like June's an opportunity to show the universe that that's correct. It's like a culmination. And so when I said at the beginning that the Five of Wands felt to me like it was not committing one way or another yet, we do not have all-out war, but we also do not have peace, putting down of arms. What we have is it being put in your hands to decide how this goes moving forwards. And it could be that there are decisions that you are called to make that feel kind of uncomfortable, right? perhaps there's a bit of a battering to the ego that's going on here a little bit, but as a counterpoint to that, it's you actually doing what's right. It's you doing what's right for you and for the people around you that you care about. And the interference of your ego saying, I want this result, 6 of Wands, is kind of taken and put entirely to one side. And it's like, well, no, actually what I want is what's right. What I want is to be able to stand in my integrity. What I want is to be able to be truly fucking authentic. And in some ways that's having you kind of pulling yourself out of the situation. I kind of described it as a kind of Jesus take the wheel sort of situation. It's like hands off. There you go, universe. I'm sitting here, I'm learning the things, I'm working all of this out. You show me how you want this to go, and I will show up emotionally as evolved as I actually am, with my ego put to one side, focused on instead being that expression of integrity, being that expression of faith, being, having self-belief, but also having belief in the bigger fabric of whatever fucking incredible tapestry we happen to be in the middle of right now. And understanding that the path that I was set on taking possibly might be going in a different direction, and responding somewhat on the fly to that, like giving everything your emotional attention, being like, right, okay, plans are changing, I need to make new decisions in light of new information, then I'm going to stand there and I'm going to consider it. No knee-jerk reactions, no like, fuck this, I'm off. Actually just sit and think about it. Because I think you've hit a level of maturity now here, Leo, where you could not possibly have done this 2 years ago. And it's a testament to how much you have grown that you can. We've got the King of Pentacles, and we've got the 9 of Pentacles, and we've got the Ace of Cups. Do you know what? In some ways, Leo, it feels to me like looking at that as like it's the Holy Grail. The Ace of Cups is, not only is it a stunningly beautiful card, but it's a stunningly beautiful energy, right? And it talks to the relationship that we have with ourselves. And once the relationship that we have with ourselves begins to change, so our relationships outside of us also change. We don't project, at least not to the same extent that we used to. We don't do things out of fear. Okay? We have the ability to be able to stand there and say yes with our full chest, or say no with our full chest, and stand by our decisions. Not with this kind of idea in the back of our head that actually we're really fucking scared of this and we hope that we don't get found out about something, or we don't get our deepest vulnerabilities exposed so that we can be mocked and humiliated by people. Knowing that we haven't done something so that we won't be hurt. Because how many times have I said to you, Leo, right? Like, the self-work is not about making all of your problems disappear. It's the nature of life. They're just here. It's just what life is. It's a series of fucking complex and intricate learning experiences that somehow we are being called to assimilate so that we embody them in our meat sack as we are right now. I've literally forgotten the sentence that I just said, so I have no idea where I was going with that. Give me a second. Fuck. Yeah, there we go. Whew, that took a minute. Right. It's not about making your problems smaller. It's about making you bigger. And my God, Leo, how you have grown. Bigger and bigger and bigger. And this attachment to outcome that we have been all so very fucking guilty of. I remember somebody commenting on the channel. I went, put the word wine in like asterisks, but I like being attached to outcomes. And I was like, God, I fucking feel that. I feel you, sister. I really do. It's gone. It's been replaced with what is right, with honour, with integrity, with emotional maturity, and with a level of acceptance and compassion that hitherto you were not able to access. Right? There might have been lots of ways in which we thought we could access it before, but what we're starting to understand is quite the extent to which the mental gymnastics have been at play in order to justify the emotional reactions, and which could be anything from absolute fucking histrionics, bit of Leo drama, right, down to that kind of whimpering, but I don't want to, like the cowardly lion. Like, we all have that as Leos, we all have that cowardly lion archetype within us. Most of us shove it into our shadow, but we don't recognise the ways that it's played out sideways for us over the passing of time. Forgiveness, compassion, openness. The holy grail of being able to stand in a relationship with you and being like, we are literally doing our best, and our best is pretty fucking good. Even in the face of those things that would seek to undermine us, those things that would seek to trigger us, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of attempts at triggering that are going to be going on for you, Leo. And every step along the way, being so very conscious about the decisions that you make. Really conscious about it. There's the King of Wands. There you are, Leo. Like, for you, for some of you, the action will be in no reaction. For some of you, the reaction will be simply standing in your truth and not having to scream and shout and holler about it. Just stand in your truth and be who you are. Because with this King of Pentacles here and this Nine of Pentacles, what you are doing is creating the foundation for your future, but you are also guarding your energy. Now, how many times have I said about the devil? The devil has no power of his own. None. Not a shred. He only has what you give him. And if you are, with a light touch, guarding your energy, guarding your pentacles, right? And I see these as energetic currency, so whatever you can invest becomes a pentacle. If you aren't handing those fucking pentacles out to anyone, whether they are people outside of you or whether they are, your own personal devil that is sitting on your shoulder all of the time, this energy withers away. This is not about meeting this with the full force of Mars in Leo. It's understanding that the true expression of that Mars in Leo energy is something a little different to what we had thought. It's about standing up straight and being able to be confident and say things with your entire chest. It's actually about the meaning of true courage. And that doesn't have to involve being on the attack. And in the guarding of your pentacles, in the way that you are, the light touch on the way that you're guarding your energy and not allowing yourself to be drawn away from the place where you are standing. You are laying the foundation for the future, for something really fucking solid. This is Taurus energy. Jupiter is in Taurus. And it's squaring Pluto, which is in your opposite sign at the moment. If you don't think that that's going to affect you, Leo, I have news for you. And if you happen to be somebody who was born, in the generation that has Leo as your north node, then Aquarius is your south node. And Jupiter is looking to expand the tension between all of these. There's a really intricate web here, Leo, and I do think, I feel like you're navigating it beautifully. And it means that there's probably going to be frustrations along the way, and there's probably going to be things that are going to make you want to, fucking face desk. But they're transitory and they're fleeting. And there's a bigger picture here. And for the first time, it seems to me like you're seeing the bigger picture. So I've been prattling on for fucking ages, right? I'm going to go now. Let me go use the loo. But I'm going to go and going to go over to Vimeo is what I'm going to do. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can also come and sign up at Circle and see extendeds that way and whatnot. If you wish to do neither, that is absolutely fine also. And as a TLDR, I mean, if you take nothing else away from this reading, it is this, for you, faith expresses itself in a very particular way. And it is related to your courage, and it's related to your big heart, Leo. But it's also coming from a place of understanding what you stand for and why it is important. Picking your battles. Listening to new information. Evaluating it critically. And then making the decision 100 times a day as to whether this is the right place for you to be standing. And if it's not, if something comes along that suggests that there's some sort of adjustment necessary, then make that adjustment, because it takes nothing away from you, Leo. All it does is advance you. So, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.